We're doing it. We're recording a podcast.
Oh shit, we're recording a podcast.
How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Christian?
Good. Do you want to introduce yourself to my followers?
Yeah, my name is Alex. I don't know if should I look at you or the camera?
Me, I guess.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I'm Alex Astrella, and I'm a amateur / beginner documentary filmmaker, and also getting my master's in special education at Vanderbilt University. That's why we're here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Fuck yeah. We're in Nashville, Tennessee right now.
We're in Nashville, Tennessee.
Right side of we were just at the Parthenon.
We're just at the Parthenon. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You live about a mile away from the Parthenon? No.
About a mile, yeah, give or take a mile. About a 30-minute walk. But
yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, there is a 1-to-1 scale replica of the Parthenon from Greece inside Nashville, Tennessee, which is really unexpected, but it's actually one of the cooler things in Nashville so far.
It's pretty cool. I never went inside before, but yeah.
Pretty fucking sick.
Pretty sick.
You can cuss on this, by the way.
Oh, you can't? You can?
You can.
Oh, okay, can. Yeah. I was like, that's gonna be hard if I can't cuss. I was like,
yeah. Do you want to start? Do you want to say your first cuss word just to get used to it?
Fuck.
Shit.
Yeah. I remember my freshman year history teacher, freshman year high school history teacher, making it a point that fuck can be used as an adjective, a noun, a verb. It was very, and he's talking to a bunch of 15-year-olds. Yeah. But he was very open. He was a weird guy. He was unusual. Yeah. But I remember I kept that with me. It's that was one of the first classes because somebody asked him about swearing. He's like, fuck.
Shit.
Yeah. It was it just stuck with me. It's it is
just
one of the few examples where you can use it in several different forms.
I guess part of the reason I want to talk to you is because I see you as somebody who's very unapologetic about the things you say. At least, when we're not being recorded, you make jokes and you say things that are completely ludicrous to me.
True.
And I think it's fundamentally that those things are they're just words and expression. And you could say and be very mean, just and be very cruel to people by saying things like "How's your day?" or it's nice shoes, but it could be in a way that actually puts people down.
Right.
Whereas you could say things like "I'm gonna murder a baby" and skin it, and it's totally in good humor and totally obviously that skinning babies and killing babies is bad.
Probably not a good look.
Yeah. Probably not good. But you can still say these things that are ludicrous and still communicate well, and communicate different things.
Right.
Yeah. And and I guess another thing I wanted to talk to you about is your documentaries. You're going into these prisons and you're talking to people that are seen as maybe below, they're on the bottom rung of society. I don't believe that just might be the prisoners, right, murderers, and you're talking to murderers directly, asking them these questions, and it is something that they're good people, right? They're not the stereotype of what you think a killer might be like.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the norm that society, we were talking about it earlier, the example in the Dark Knight, right, where Christopher Nolan draws up this structure where it's pretty black and white. You're gonna save the innocent civilians, or you're gonna save a bunch of prisoners whose lines are literally so contrived and by the books, what you expect, what media has taught the general public to expect from prison inmates, right, especially ones who have committed pretty serious offenses. Right. But the truth of it is, at least in my experience, is that they're human beings who have made mistakes, and a lot of these guys are very close to religion, and have personally taken responsibility and repented for their sins. Right. And a lot of them have also, by the programs they're in, with Trial by Fire, the inmate firefighting program, and with Underdogs, training service animals for veterans with PTSD. Right. They're in by them being enrolled in those programs, and from talking to several of them,
Yeah.
and learning that, like, you know, even though I was only with them each for a day at a time, you just can, like, you know, learn pretty quickly that they're very passionate about their work. You know, they're not doing it to shave time off their sentence. They're doing it because they actually care about training these dogs. They're doing it because they right. They're doing it because they actually care about, like, giving back to the community that they took from, saving homes, saving families, saving wildlife, nature.
Well, and I think it's, I mean, part of the thing that I've been thinking about is, like, there's no point at which you can't return from, you know. It's like you can go and murder somebody. You could be put into a place that you'll never come out of, you know, a prison or where, or at least like a social thing. Like, you could go and do something and people will judge you for it for the rest of your life. But in spite of that, you can still, you know, find meaning and do good for the world by raising dogs or putting out fires, you know. And I think the reason I'm saying that is, like, I believe that somebody's, like, own personal fulfilling life, them actually being able to find meaning in what they do, has a lot more to do with that. Like, having the humility to humble yourselves enough to be like, okay, you know I messed up, but I'm going to just do the best I can, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, to me it seems like there's a path to finding meaning, you know, rather than it being just kind of like you're not necessarily born with meaning, you know.
Right.
It kind of, you choose to see it, I think.
Right. I think so. I think big thing, yeah, like a lot of these guys, the ones we talk to as well, like, especially for Underdogs, the dog program, those guys are in there for more serious offenses, like murder, second-degree murder, among other things. And I think a lot of the times the guys committed the crimes when they were, like, juveniles, like, and, you know, pretty common sense, like, you know, when you're 14, 18, 19, even your early 20s, your mind is, like, so rapidly developing, and your hormones are changing, your testosterone levels changing, like, all that shit's, like, kind of, like, you know, evolving, and, you know, that's what leads to a lot of these, like, critical mistakes, right? You know,
when you're, like, 19, right?
When you're and like, going back to your point, when you're still finding purpose, you're still, like, and unfortunately, you know, it's like, you know, a lot of us fuck up and make, like, stupid shit.
I've done plenty.
Right? Yeah, insane.
I mean, I haven't murdered anybody.
No,
you know.
But I've gotten in a lot of. I've gotten personally myself where it's like, man, I'm grateful for the experience to have learned from it, and it's like a story to tell maybe, but, like, I would never do that shit again. Like,
Absolutely.
You know, that could have gotten me in, like, some really hot water. Like, really, I could have, like, gone to jail for that. You know, like, so, you know, unfortunately, for some other, you know, some people, like, learn the hard way, and again, through, like, more, like, egregious, like, mistakes and stuff, like taking a life. But, you know, I think that doesn't discount that they took a life, because it shouldn't discount from the fact that they're still developing, still going through puberty, and they're not, you know, when they're 39, a 39-year-old isn't the same as a 14-year-old.
Absolutely.
No matter who it is.
Well, I think it's like, in that case, the right thing to do is not to condemn them and say you have nothing left to give us. It's to, like, you know, you made this mistake, but, you know, let's try and find ways of you actually trying to improve your life, you know. And it's like, you know, somebody being a murderer doesn't make them a bad person necessarily. I mean, again, it's just a mistake, you know.
Right.
It's like, I don't know if somebody on meth, or somebody on, you know, some drug that makes them obviously more energetic, I don't know if they have complete free will at all, you know. It's like, you know, if you're in a situation where, you know, your parents force you to do meth in some way, or you grow up around where doing meth is, like, a normal thing, and then you're put into a situation to where you murder somebody, I don't know if that's completely your fault, you know.
Right.
It's like, there are things that were completely out of your control that actually contributed to that horrible thing. I'm not obviously not saying it's okay, but, you know, that salvation, or that, again, everyone admires, like, Red from the Shawshank Redemption. Have you seen Shawshank?
I have not seen
Fucking
Shawshank.
bitch, dude.
I know.
Jesus.
I know.
You're like a film guy, dude.
Film guy, and I don't.
Yeah, that's like one of the greatest movies
I
of all
didn't see
time.
it, so I know.
Okay,
People have shown
can I
it, so-
spoil it to you a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay,
please.
so in Shawshank, Red is this like charismatic, benevolent character that helps the main character kind of like acclimate to prison, and he's like a pillar of the prison as well, where everyone comes to him for things. But he was in prison for like, in the book I don't know what it was specifically, but it was like his girlfriend and his son. He killed them both for insurance purposes or something, or he like cut the brakes on the car, to cash in insurance, and he was caught. And it's like, here's this character that has done this horrible thing when he was like 18 or 19, but now in this prison he's seen as this kind of like paternal figure,
Right.
To me that doesn't seem that it's like, that's not an example. Obviously it's fiction, but that's not an example of like I don't know, it's not an example necessarily of somebody being completely right or wrong. It's that everyone is a spectrum of morality. Everyone is both like a great person some days and a horrible person other days. And well, for a lot of those guys, it seems that they just got really unlucky, for a day.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that a lot of it, that's what a lot of it kind of boils down to, is that. Okay, for audio.
Sketchy Man podcast.
Yeah. Here,
I'll take my phone as well. I can record on my phone just for...
Yeah. But I think a lot of it, like, it's very like circumstantial. Like the guys we talked to, the one guy, it was like just very like spur of the moment. I mean, and again, like talking about ourselves and many other people around our age who have experimented and dabbled in different shit, like you do sometimes things spur of the moment in a rush of adrenaline, or maybe it's like a mob mentality or just whatever, for whatever reason. And it's like, I think that's where, maybe not in the same circumstances as the guys we interviewed, but it's like I could have certainly seen myself, like, I don't know, them describing like the instances under which they committed like the crime, like the murder, or
I could see myself doing that shit.
Yeah, no, it's like I could see myself where it's like there could have been a time in my life where I could have like, I could have been, under the influence, or maybe, had the thought process to do something like that. So it's like, that's where it's like, I don't think I think that they're a lot more human than a lot of people think. It's like, they're not all that, you could have made the exact same choice.
Right.
Just by fate, whatever you want to call it, didn't happen that way, right?
Well, and I think a lot of it, like, we were both born in relatively, like, I was born in Southern California,
Right.
We both
Same.
went to, a pretty wealthy high school in Orange County.
Right.
It's like, I don't think that, like, some things were just completely not even possible for me. It's like, I've never been exposed to meth.
Yeah.
They're like, I never really worried about my own safety growing up. It's like, I couldn't imagine what it'd be like to have parents that are like a gangbanger father or something, or a prostitute mother. I'm not saying I'm judging that. It's just like, if those things happened, it's like I would be a lot more likely to be, potentially do things that would limit my choices and limit my life.
Right, exactly. And like when, some of the, like, it's interesting, like, for Traba Fire, like the main guy we interviewed, he came from like kind of like our situation, like a wealthy background, like privilege, and it's because he had that privileged lifestyle that led him to commit like a pretty egregious like mistake. And granted, it wasn't like murder, but he caused like severe bodily injury. But learning, that's like, so I think it's interesting, like, considering he had those privileges and still, again, like what we were just talking about, could have been us, right? Could, what happened to Joseph could have been us. And then another, in the underdogs, it's like what you were just stating, like, that he came from kind of like a pretty like kind of the upbringing was rough. There was like definitely like a lot of there was like abuse, and like there was, you know, there were certainly like overwhelming factors against him, and then that's like where, you know, see, it's like then you realize, and like when that's all you kind of know and are predisposed to, then it's
you don't have a choice.
Right, exactly. You don't, you know, especially on top of what we've already talked about, you know, like developing and, you know, going through puberty, like when you are only, when you only have the experience, like you have such a limited scope slash experience, and, you know, like of like what of what reality is, because of like these overwhelmingly oppressive circumstances, then you're totally, you know, more prone to making some, you know, a violent decision like that. Yeah. Unfortunately, you know, and I don't really know the solution for that, but
I think as it relates to us, like I think there are lessons there that we can apply to our own lives. You know, it's like I've made my own mistakes. I've been, you know, an asshole, like more just like being arrogant, or like being mean to people, or, you know, having the wrong priorities and stuff. And it's like every time I've done stuff like that, I think that those kind of thoughts, you know, surrounding yourself with that kind of perspective, does a lot to like, you know, I think it's inspiring that those guys are putting so much effort into putting out fires and raising dogs, because I think if I was in that situation, I might give up, you know. And I think that's actually like a huge sign of strength from their part and will, that they're able to like almost remove themselves completely from like they know they will always have the social judgment of doing the things that they did, right? And in spite of that, they're continuing forward and doing things that are good for society, that they find meaningful.
Right.
And I think there's something really admirable in that.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I think we both meet people from like high school, for example, that like are constantly like, it's not my fault, you know, I didn't do it, or
like a lack of accountability.
Yeah, like lack of taking responsibility, you know. Yeah. And it's like that lack of responsibility like prevents them from moving forward, and actually makes those steps into doing worse things a lot more linear, you know?
Right.
And
yeah, and I think, you know, once you get to like a certain age, then you can't make that like you can't like put like taking you can't blame a lack of accountability on like inexperience or youth, right? You know, like when you get to like it's like, no, like you're in your you're 25 or you're 35, you know, what have you, and like you've been through enough experiences to where you can't pin this on like you've had enough life experiences to where it's not like, you know,
do better, right?
Yeah, right. It's not like, oh, like yeah, exactly. You know, it's not like there's some other like external factors. Like it's like, no, you've had the time to process this, and
well, I guess it's like I mean, we've been talking about this all day, where like the range of people's brains are so strange. You know, it's like there are 19-year-olds that I see as like completely like, oh, I can talk to you in a really mature way, and then people that are in their 50s that I meet, that I'm like, dude, you're a fucking kid. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, are you 50 years old? Like, holy shit.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
And it's like, and I guess part of the question is like, do you judge everybody based off the same standard? And I think the answer is yes, just to make sure no one, like, you minimize the murders and all the horrible stuff that can happen. But it's like, there are people's brains that I think are just predetermined to either fit in or not to fit in, you know, which I think is obviously very tragic.
Right. I think, yeah, and it's kind of it's interesting because you know, like kind of going back to what you were saying earlier about like, you know, they're like 19-year-olds like who act like, you know, like more mature than a 50-year-old, like, right? Like a lot of the guys we talk to and the for in both the prisons, it's like you're more, you know, even though you've committed this crime and apparently you're outcasted by a majority of society, the things you're saying are much more intelligent than
much more
like
reasonable. Yeah, yeah.
than most of the people I know from high school.
Yeah,
you know, to
absolutely.
be quite frank, like you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like
And that they might be going to like USC or UCLA.
yeah,
you know,
exactly,
getting
yeah.
fancy, you know.
No, seriously, like these guys have like way more philosophical outlooks on life and like you know their viewpoints on their like stances on redemption and you know love, and it's just like a lot more. I mean, if you're able to go look at if you know are to go look at the films, it's like you could say like you know I don't think not to throw like frat guys under the bus, but it's kind of throw. But it's like I don't think you know a lot of like guys in that position can come up with the same like could articulate the same response, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like it's a shame that you know because these guys they're so intellectual, they're so caring, compassionate, giving back, atoning for their sins, that again there's this circling back that there's this like common stigma in society that they are lesser human beings.
Yeah, which I think it's horrible, and I think like if everyone could have the same if everyone can have the same access to resources and time and money and all those good family, that's obviously the best case scenario. But I think it's like even in spite of that, like there are people that you know go to those fancy colleges, they have all of the things that like they have their lives set out for them, and then they still they have no other option but to drink every night, get blacked out drunk, and
Right.
you know, and fucking be douchebags to people, and you know, it's like we were watching All Gas No Brakes, you know,
Right.
and it's like those people like the people at on the beach, you know, just completely fucking insane, like.
And the one guy's like saying how he's going to like medical school at like Northern Michigan State University or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like he's you know right, to get into medical school you have to have a certain degree of knowledge and like ability, right? But like yeah, competence, and yet this guy's out there in the middle of like a pandemic, like just like talking like sounding like a fucking idiot, like you know, and meanwhile like you know society is like societal norms have taught like oh yeah he's going to like you know that guy's going to medical school, like he's going to be successful like in life, you know, like it's just been been like a blip on the radar, like he's like you know like he clearly knows his shit, but then like again like you know like oh man this guy like this guy made a one too many, he like took somebody's life, he's never, no matter what he does, he could he could you know.
Right. Well, I think race unfortunately plays a role in that to a degree.
Oh, for sure, without a doubt. Yeah.
Like there's obviously like a Kyle Rittenhouse thing, you know. It's like that. You're familiar with Kyle?
I don't think I am actually. No.
So he was I don't know the story exactly, but I think he was a white frat kid that killed somebody or something or raped somebody, and he like was bled off, you know. And obviously, like the argument is you see a lot more African American people doing that kind of stuff that are put into prison or you know don't even get a chance at a chance at redemption, and it's like it is strange to me that we do place value on people in that way. It's like somebody going to college or somebody going to going to prison, or
trade school even, you know, like,
right.
Like there's this stigma like if you go to a like I don't know, you talk to the general societal the stereotypes that have been created that the person that goes to Yale is going to be, even if they're making like less money, is more qualified than the person that like went to like a trade school, right?
And like living on a happier life, right?
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
Like they might not want to be an academic, but they're like, oh, this is better. You know. This is
it's like what they're passionate. You know, they or maybe they, you know, it's not their passion, but they have time to like do their passion. You know, they have time to like be artists or make music or what have you.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, again, I didn't go to college. I dropped out, and I think it was a great decision. I think college is fucking bullshit, but I think it's like, for me, that was the correct decision. But I've experienced people that are like, oh, you can go back anytime you want. It's like, oh yeah, you don't have to, it's like, oh, it's always an option if you want to. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking go at all.
No,
I
know.
It's like even if like somebody's like full ride to Harvard, I'd be like, nope, don't want to do it.
No, it's kind of I kind of like, even though like, you know, I went to undergrad, I did my undergrad and getting my master's now, but it's like I hate the perception that people like, some people are like, oh yeah, like because like when they say that, there's inherently the sense like, well, you're gonna go at some point, you're gonna get like you're an adult, so like it's almost like a
rite of passage or something.
Oh, right, yeah, exactly. That's a perfect word for saying, or a perfect term for it, like rite of passage. That like to go into adulthood and have a family, you have to have like a college degree or something, right? So it's like almost like the expectation is like, oh well, there's plenty of time, like that you're gonna go, like it's like
right. And
I
hate that.
Yeah, that's bullshit because look at how many successful like Quentin Tarantino.
Right.
Like
go down the list of people. You know?
So many, yeah. Like, you know, that's a very like basic example, but there's so many like that have just
Bill Gates,
defied the norm. Yeah. And granted, they're all not like great people, but like, you know, they've I
don't think anyone's great.
They're household names, like yeah.
Well, I don't think the goal is to be a household name. It's just to like feel okay with yourself. You know, like be able to sleep at night, do the things you want to do, spend your time, your limited amount of time doing the things you want to do. You know, it's like, if you don't really want to be writing papers and doing that kind of shit, you have the ability to not do that. You know, you have the ability to just like live in the woods, you know, or be a hiking guide, or be like a, you know, just do like teach people to surf or garden or whatever. You know.
Yeah.
I think it's like the world is so fucking complicated. The world is so big that to let other people dictate the way you spend your time is completely insane. You know, it's like I'm 26 now and you're 25.
Right.
It's like, if we live until we're 80, right, which is like a good age to die, we have like 40 or 56 years left, about 55.
I'm horrible at math. I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
We have like 55 years left.
Yeah.
Right. It's like we're already fucking like a third of the way there almost. You know. It's
yeah.
Like, yeah. I've lived 25 years or 26 years. I could live another. You know, it's gonna go by really quickly. You know?
Right.
I'm sleeping half the time, so that 25 years you have, or 50, you know, you cut that down the middle. You have 25 years. You know?
Right.
And you're working and doing things you don't want to do. You cut that down, and you have like 10 years left of time to like do the things you want to do. You know.
Yeah.
And thinking about it that way, it's like, you know, like I was thinking about this morning. I was. Do you know Norm Macdonald, the comedian?
I've heard. Yes, I've heard the name. I know the name.
He's like super famous. He died recently from
cancer.
Yeah. I was thinking like, oh man, that guy fucking died. That sucks. But Harvey Weinstein is still alive, you know. And it's like, who would I rather be, right? This guy who's like a legendary comic everyone loves and respects, and or this guy that's like still alive that fucking raped a bunch of people and everyone hates. And the answer is like, I would rather be dead and Norm Macdonald than Harvey Weinstein and obviously, you know, raping a bunch of people.
Yeah,
you know?
and probably I would imagine living with the self-guilt.
Yeah.
Maybe he might be a total sociopath. I don't fucking know, but like, you know, it's interesting. I've never like kind of pictured. I've never thought about it the way that you just described that. Like, you know, like 55 years, but then cut down sleeping. 25 years cut down with work. You know, for like leisure time activities, about 10 years, give or take. In terms of like pure hours, like to do that stuff, right? Which is why I don't, you know, I don't understand. Like to use like an example, like my dad, you know, I also play guitar very mediocrely, but like, you know,
shut the fuck
up. Not well, but like I've tried to like teach him basic chords and stuff, and he's like, oh no, like I'm beyond that age, and you know, I mean that's bringing a whole nother dimension into it, but like you know to think that like you're too old to start something, or like you know, like we were talking about like
drawing and painting,
drawing and painting, even though like I did at the moment I don't want to like, you know, really, because what I'm doing with film and with the master's degree, it's like don't really have the time / like other commitments, but it's like if I wanted to, like 10 years when I'm 34, what's stopping me from picking it back up, right? Absolutely. You know, what's stopping me from like taking YouTube class, even though like I said, like last thing I did I thought was shit. What's stopping me from like giving it another shot, like giving it another go, especially because I know it's like, you know, like you know, you have your trials and successes, right? You know, like when before I did Trial by Fire, the first film, I was like, this is shit.
Yeah.
Well, why? And then when I did Trial, I was like, well, this is like make or break. And then it was like good, and it's like, okay. But then the next one, the third one, kind of like fucking stunk too. So it's like, yeah, is this a fluke or not? It's like, but
Yeah.
you know, you'll, but like more you put into it, the more you kind of like learn to. This just isn't for film, but you know, like we were talking about, like art, like you don't have to, like having the eye for it, having like the stroke, or like the you know, it's kind of bullshit. It's like, it's just like how much time you put in,
Absolutely.
how much you can believe in yourself to like
Yeah.
learn from the mistakes and improve, even if it's like a slight, just a moderate improvement, saying like, okay, this is better than the last thing I've done.
Yeah.
Or okay, I like learned from, like I learned like a significant amount from this like last project, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that like becoming a better technical person, like understanding shot composition more and pacing and all that kind of stuff in documentary filmmaking, actually might make you a worse artist, because you're like, and it'll make that process of like seeing your stuff as shittier a lot easier, because you'll have a much better eye, you know. In 10 years you might look at Trial by Fire and be like, oh, that was a horrible documentary. It's like, I'm embarrassed to, you know. And it's like, you know, it's the same thing for drawing. It's like, you might do, you know, that horrible, you know, the last piece of art you didn't feel good about, but in like 5 years of drawing, you'll be like, oh, those things I was really proud of are complete shit to me now.
Right.
It's like, and looking at it that way, it's like everything is going to be complete shit to you at some point.
Yeah.
It's like the goal is to like just not care about it being shit or not. It's like love the process of doing it.
Right, exactly. And yeah, you totally like hit the head on the nail there, because like I totally like, you know, I'm still very proud of Trial by Fire. I look back, you know, when it was in a festival like a month ago or something, and it's like it was like almost like kind of pure ecstasy the first time I saw it, right? I was like, holy shit, like this is something I did that like I'm actually proud of, and like I think it's generally getting good responses. And now I look back and like, oh, this is like rough. This is really rough around the edges, right? This is you know, this is very amateurish, right? This is like, but it's like, yeah, you know, and again, what we were talking about earlier, like, you know, you never want to settle for, it's like, what, like, okay, like this is like the best I can do, you know. It's like, you know, who puts out something, you know, whether it be like a record or like a new documentary or like a new film, whatever have you, TV show. Who you know, if you're putting out and being like, well, this is the best I can do, it's like, you know, it's not my best work, but I had to put something out, so you're here it is. It's like,
good enough.
What you know, that's like,
that's
when you settle for that complacency, it just takes, for me, it would just take the total fun out of it. And then I think it takes the artistic integrity out of it too, because you're just doing it for like, you're just doing some to put it out to say I did something. You're not like truly like you're not. I think personally, I know a lot of like other artists like feel the same way. It's like every successive project you put out, even if it's not received like the, you know, as well as like your previous work, you should personally feel that's like the best thing you've done to date. Absolutely. Because if you're not like looking back on like, you know, one of my previous projects, being like, it's like great, but there's definitely certainly room for improvement. Like if you're just like that's like the pinnacle of like what I can do, like everything from here on out is just going to be like, you know, keep my like resume, like keep my portfolio up to date. It's like, no, you got to make sure that you have to be like aware of like what you have to be passionate about like the material, and also like what room for improvement there is, or what you know, even if it's not like generally well received as
absolutely stuff. Well, and I think it's about seeing those mistakes, those little like those things that you saw as a waste of time, as a stepping stone to getting better and doing the next thing, you know.
Right.
And again, it's always like the cameras you shot your documentaries on were better cameras than what was used to shoot Star Wars on, the original Star Wars. You know, it's like the tools that we have are essentially this like the same tools that people use to make feature-length movies, you know.
Right.
And I think it's really important not to compromise and think about what other people think of you, because if the tools are the same, then the only difference between productions now is essentially like the value of the ideas that you're trying to present.
Right.
You know. And the second you start compromising your ideas and who you are and what you could be in order to I don't know, just be lazy or to like get something out sooner or whatever.
Yeah.
You're like compromising the vision of what it could be, you know.
Right.
And then the entire thing crumbles because
Yeah.
you're like starting to just like give up your ideas for
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, I've personally experienced that. That's why, like, one of the narrative projects I did, like Sound of Serenity, it's like I think I kind of sacrificed that artistic integrity to focus on like what's the best like cinema camera we can get, what's the best like who are the best actors we can get, like what are, you know, your and it was a great learning experience because at the time when I was going through it, I was like, this is it, you know, this is how it's done, right? This is like, you know, like the best of the best, right? That's what, like, the best technology is going to make the best film, and it's absolutely bullshit.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's like total bullshit. Because then at the end of the day, when we did finally, it was, you know, pre-production was a nightmare because of that, like trying to acquire all that things. So we did get into production. I was just like lost all the motivation,
Yeah.
you know. And then at the same, you know, on the other end of the spectrum, when it's like you have limited resources, you know, like limited budget, limited crew, I think that almost kind of forces you to think outside the box. It makes you like, it can enhance your project, right? Because you're forced to like work with the technology / like resource constraints, right?
Absolutely.
But I think that can like kind of foster like pretty
Yeah.
not in, you know, innovative / like, you know, things you didn't think of, like things that you're like, oh, okay, we don't have this this gimbal, but we got handheld, so like let's like, so, you know, we had this in the like treatment, but let's go for this instead, and then it ends up being a lot more thematically fitting for like the
and a lot more honest.
yeah, exactly, right? Like
well, I mean, I'm a big fan of like, I don't know, it sounds weird saying this, but like spirituality stuff, in the sense where like when you can't afford something and you're like everything is happening in order for that particular, like for you to do handheld instead of Steadicam stuff, that's like the universe telling you to do handheld stuff, you know?
right.
Because it's like, you know, you actually can't afford it, or it might be impractical, or it just actually, you will not do it because all the prep work required to do it, you know. Maybe the initial limitation of having a handheld thing will make it more, like it'll make it have like Cloverfield Lane,
Right.
the J.J. Abrams movie, you know?
Right.
It's like a you know, a movie that's shot completely just on, you know, handheld thing. And if it were a like, you know, had all the fancy steady cams and stuff, it'd be a completely different movie.
Yeah.
It just like it completely different perspective as well.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like you can't like expect like, even, you know, because I think, again, go back to that narrative project, I was like, oh, like, you know, we get the really silky smooth image, and like the steady cam, the rig, like, just, I wasn't even thinking about it thematically, right? I was just thinking about it like in pure like technological terms, and it's like, again, it was like sacrificing the integrity of the project because I was just like, I wanted like the best technology. And it's like, yeah, again, when you're like, for the last thing, you know, we like for the last documentary, it's because we, you know, I initially had in the treatment some ideas for B-roll with like steady camera, like on a gimbal, and didn't work. We had the technology, but just was like too, like, you know, literally like the camera was like too heavy for the gimbal and stuff, so we had to like compromise with like handheld. But it actually worked out a lot better, I think, because it's like I had to scratch some of those initial like B-roll concepts and come up with new ones. But it's like in like kind of reviewing like the footage and stuff, it's like this actually like is like more
works better
for the theme, and like kind of like the, you know, her lifestyle, like it's more appropriate, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think the creative process is like having a vision for the way you want it to be, and then compromising along the way to actually create it, you know.
Yeah,
it's like you can't have 100% of what you want no matter who you are.
No,
you know?
no way. Like, but that's part of the, I think that's part of the fun of it too. Like when you're not able, because if it were to be a, you know, what learning experience would you come out of a project like that if everything went like 100% as planned, right? You know, like the corners you have to cut along the way, the like compromises you have to make, the difficult decisions, you know, that's all it contributes not only to the final product and like why you're so proud of it, but then like the learning experiences you take out of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like a big part of that is like killing your ego, you know, and like from like a, you know, maybe like a more metaphorical sense, like when you're creating a thing, you're creating a thing to show to the world, and you're like communicating to the world. And when those things are happening, those little roadblocks and all that kind of stuff, it's like that's actually to a degree part of the again it's definitely like an inevitability, you know, and I really believe that it's never about the quality of the idea. I think it's all about the quality of the execution.
Yeah.
Like how willing are you to compromise, and how good are those compromises? Are you able to still maintain a measure of your like creative vision in spite of, you know, like, you know, all these little things coming up?
Right. And especially like, you know, you know, yeah, in documentary, like, you know, execution of, you know, like the treating like your subject matter properly, you know, like getting, you know, like respectfully. And I think that's what, you know, why going to grad school for like special education, you know, along the way I've learned so much about like listening and understanding, which I think ties directly into being an interviewer, right? Like, because you know, you're kind of, you know, we were talking about last night, you know, going off of script rather than, you know, just like allowing, like what we're doing right now, allowing the conversation to flow rather than having like a set of questions, you know. And like I think the work I've done with the kids has made me has benefited my like my role as like being an interviewer, because it's like allowed me like I have like more knowledge of how to like listen and like react appropriately and properly. And I think that in the documentary world is so much of the execution relies within that, you know. If you know, you're like able to just kind of react accordingly and have a conversation that allows that person to open up rather than jumping off of like a script, you know, and like just like being like, you know, oh, okay, that's great. Like, and I'm guilty of that for sure. Like the first film, you know, even though I think it ended up good, okay, I'm proud of it. It's like there could have been several more opportunities where I could have just had a like more free flowing conversation and could have like gotten more, or, you know, like learned more insight, gained more insight. So I think that's like a, you know, a critical reason why I'm doing this, because it's like, you know, not only like the benefits I learned from being and interacting with these kiddos, but like again, like listening and understanding and how that translates over into being an interviewer and hopefully improving my work as a filmmaker too.
Absolutely. Well, I think no matter if you're a painter or a filmmaker or a musician or a chef or whatever, it's like the thing that you're trying to do is communicate ideas and make people probably feel good about themselves, you know, or try and say something that'll make people feel more existentially fulfilled, you know. And I think empathy is the key to that. And I found that the best artists I've met, the people that I resonate with art the most, and I think generally people resonate with them the most, is they create some kind of like nostalgia, or some kind of like, they develop trust, they develop some kind of like maternal or paternal role in some way, or brotherly or whatever. But the core of it is empathy, you know. They trust this person's art. It's not like it's being condescending to them, you know. It's like, you know, you can make a documentary about prison firefighters and make it, and the tone could be like you guys are all bad people, you know.
Yeah, totally like exploitative or like, you know, like undermining, right? Yeah.
It's like, oh, you killed people, you know, you're still bad people, or you know, it's like, you know, you could just like, you know, try the tone, and the empathy might be very condescending and you know, patronizing, and it's like that ultimately would make a much worse documentary film.
Right. And I think that's why I've tried to approach like everything with like, I don't want to say like I go into, you know, like all my documentary projects with like this like kind of goal, you know, like empathy being like the primary. Although I do want to practice, obviously I do want to practice being empathetic and like listening, but it's like, you know, I want to get like as much as I can, the real story, right? The unbiased perspective. But, you know, I think, yeah, like just, and again, I think that's what this job, you know, working with special needs children has taught me so much about like empathy and knowing when to be empathetic. And again, so maybe not like in an interview space, maybe not going in with the idea of like, okay, even though like I care, I want to like bring awareness to this topic. I don't want necessarily like can base everything around being like empathetic, like, right? Because I would might skew the story for the worse, right? If you
it also might make it about you being empathetic,
right, exactly.
Look at how great I am,
exactly.
It's like I'm calling attention, like I am a saint for talking to these scum,
That's why I never personally I am very I know it works for a lot of people, but I'm very opposed to like including myself in the documentaries. I have like a line or two, like where you'll hear my voice, but I do not want to be like in the, because I think some of those documentaries come across like that too, where like they where you have the person, the director, the interviewer comes across as like trying to be this like patron saint, because they include, they're like, oh yeah, like look at how like I make such a difference in the world, or I'm gonna like show like expose, I'm gonna like make you guys woke about this, right? It's like, I don't want that. Like, if people like take that away like from my films, like that's awesome, that's amazing, but that's not what I'm trying to. That's not the main intent, for sure. Like,
well, and to me, it seems like if you're doing it, you're like stealing somebody else's suffering,
Right. You're stealing the spotlight, right? When
yeah.
it's like, and again, you're like compromising your artistic integrity, because at that point, you're making the film about yourself, and not the subject matter is like sort of like a vehicle for your own boost in status, or
Well, and I think a fair amount of that is okay. I mean, I'm doing that to a degree, right? It's like I'm hosting this podcast show, and I'm driving around the country in a van, and I'm obviously the host of it, and it's like I'm having these very public conversations with people, and I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a degree of that going on with whatever this thing is,
Right.
But at the same time, the goal for me is to try to have as candid of a conversation as I possibly can with people without it becoming mostly that. And again, trying to maintain like a measure of individuality, and like it's not about me, really. I hope it's really not. I hope it's not about me at all. I hope it's about just communicating ideas, sharing ideas of people that don't normally talk in this way, publicly.
Right. I think that's the best thing, like whether it be like a film festival, whether it be at like a professional event, like a networking event or something, like those are like some of the best conversations, where it's not like it's just kind of like a bouncing off of each other. It's not just like that's kind of why I've separated myself from like narrative and the Hollywood scene, is it's like, well, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this. It's like, no, I'd much rather like have like a conversation like we're having right now, like kind of like discuss, like bouncing off ideas, and like kind of take into consideration certain factors and stuff, like because it's like, it's not like skewed one way or the other. It's just
it doesn't matter who you are,
right? It doesn't matter who you are. It's just like kind of like perspectives, I suppose.
I was at Comic-Con once, and I was walking around Comic-Con with my dad, and somebody walked up to us and just introduced themselves with their job title, where they went to school, and then their name. And I think that's like just the worst possible thing. It's like,
who wants to be friends with that person?
I'm executive of this, and I went to this school. It's like, just getting 100% of your validation out of those things that aren't really have nothing to do with you. It's like, oh man, it's not good.
No, that's, and again, I feel like that's like the shitty part about the Hollywood thing, is like, oh yeah, I like represent so and so, or like I like it, and that takes away from the art. That's like it's ironic, these people are really supposed to be there to like develop, like create this like entertainment that's like forwarding society, that's going to last forever in some platform, and yet they're like more focused on saying like the brand they represent, or like what they, it's it totally takes away from like what they're creating, I think.
It's like Machiavellian politics stuff.
Exactly.
And again, I think there has to be a fair amount of that, like a little bit of it, just because we are flawed, and we are like people have to make money, they have to like survive, but it's like the second it becomes 100% that's when it gets really, again, not good.
No, certainly you have to like, I mean, the inherent nature of like networking is you have to like put your business card, or you have to like say like you have to describe what you've done, right, to like get a connect, like to solidify a connection, or to like make a friendship. But
absolutely.
You just gotta know boundaries, right? You gotta know like and excuse me, like how that like to not make it all about yourself, and rather like kind of foster, like make it so that where you are like giving enough information about yourself to like foster a relationship, and to see like to hopefully show the person you're interacting with that like you have like, you know, you're genuinely like interested in like learning more, and, you know, building like, you know, maybe working with them on a project or helping them out. Because you know, in the film industry, that's everything, is like, you know, you do a favor for somebody, they do a favor for you. You know, I made so many, there's been so many like connections I've made that have led me to like, you know, great opportunities. Like Underdogs wouldn't have existed without like a film festival I went to for Trial by Fire, and
Right.
I wouldn't have found a director of photography for this last project had it not have been for me networking with another filmmaker at a film festival. So like,
Right.
you know, when you definitely to an extent have to like put yourself out there, but you just gotta.
Well, and things start happening, like things you would never expect.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's not too far off to where like Quentin Tarantino sees one of your documentaries and he's like, "Oh, that's cool. Can I meet you?" And then, you know,
It's like, they fucking suck.
I would still, I don't know, I think I might be happy if Quentin Tarantino.
I'd say if he had any reaction, you know, he might, you know, if he was just like chewing chips and like just like I'm just a room with him chewing chips, and it's like, all right, well, I succeeded. I can die happy now.
Yeah. We've been going for about 51 minutes. Or
Oh
so.
shit, yeah. Yeah, shit.
What time is it?
2, 3, 40.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Got it
Good.
out.
Good wrapping point.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, Alex.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Here, do
Fist bump?
Yeah.
Fist bump?
Okay, I feel like because you went for the handshake.
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go. Like, really silly.
Cool.
But yeah, thank you for that was a lot of fun. So
How should people follow you?
If you want to follow me at Astrella Top 4, Astrella Top 4.
I'll do one of these things.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. You can do that fancy shit.
You have to point to the.
Yeah. Even though I don't know how to do any of that social media stuff, but yeah. If you want to follow me on Instagram there,
And then-
there's a link to my Vimeo and
Your documentaries are Underdogs.
Underdogs and Trial by Fire, and there's a new one on the way that's still kind of under wraps, but
Okay, cool.
Sick,
man.
more.
Well, thanks so much.
yeah. Thank you.